Hey, what's going on, guys? So, Gundam Requiem for Vengeance, the Netflix series, has been out for a little while now. I finally got around to watching it over the Thanksgiving break, and I actually really quite liked it. There is some pros and cons to the series, but not going to focus so much on a review of the series in this video. We're going to be starting off taking a look at one of the two main releases that we have out for the series is, of course, the Zaku 2 F-Type Solari RFV version here. Then we will also be taking a look at the Gundam in the next video, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we're going to take a look at this version of the Zaku. Let's go ahead and get right into it for today's video. So first of all, no matter what you think of the Zaku design here, and I do have a little bit of mixed thoughts on it, but I'm holding off judgment until I build the kit. You gotta say that the box art here does look really cool with the kind of your standard HG styling, but of course just with these Zaku designs being particularly like extra detailed, it makes for some pretty cool looking box art here where you can see a couple of the units right there from the series. It looks really nice. On the sides of the box, you can see this is number 254 in the lineup, and on the bottom of the box here we can see what the kit is going to look like when it's all built. And it looks like painted up, panel lined up for sure. You got some decals on there. And over here, some details about some of the movement of it. Action, it's got this moving part here for the cable, the hose on the side of the leg, how that's going to be able to move. It's got all of the details there represented. It's got the heat hawk, the shoulder shield, and expressive hand parts, I guess, are going to be included as well. I think that's probably just like an open hand for the left side. And then gimmicks and markings, so even the claws on the feet we're going to have as markings in here. Okay, we'll see about that. On the other side here, more about the series. We've got a little blurb about that in Japanese and in English, as well as some QR codes for the website, a little bit there about the series. And that's kind of about it for the outside of the box. So yeah, I mean, the design, love it or hate it, I appreciate the fact that they just did something kind of different here for this. So the sticker sheet looks pretty interesting. We'll get back to that. It's, if nothing else, different, and I think that's good. Here on the front of the manual, looking very typical HGUC style, we've got some information about the mobile suit and armaments right there, and a nice big painted reference image right here. I almost wonder if that is painted. I suppose that it probably is, but I mean, I'm sure the kit, just with some panel lining and top coat on it, would look pretty similar to that, even if you didn't decide to fully paint it. All right, going around here to the back side, we've got more information in Japanese and in English about the mobile suit and some of the different armaments and aspects of the design. We've got the marking guide and color guide down here at the bottom, right there. Opening it up to the inside, I don't think we're going to have anything much else to look at. We've got our parts list right here, and part of the construction is going to be in black and white for the bulk of the construction. Then we get around to closer to the end, it is going to be here in full color for like the second leg, final assembly weapons, that part of it. Now let's check out this sticker sheet, which looks very interesting. So we've got like some markings on there, it's all good and well. Then you got some of these here, which is like stickers of the dirt in the Zimmerit, essentially, for like around on the feet, which is very interesting. I'm anxious to see how these go on, because I'm pretty sure that that detail is molded in. And usually stickers like this on top of especially very fine molded detail usually just don't really look very good. Your better bet would be just to panel line wash that detail in yourself, and then just paint these on. They'll be super easy to paint just with a little bit of black paint. But we'll check that out some more in the review portion of the video. But let's go ahead and check out the runners here, as we do not have any polycaps at all. We can get right into it with runner A1, which is interesting because, as you can see, it's a very segmented runner, and there is no A2. So I'm only guessing that this is A1, and the runner looks like this because this is the runner that is going to be used for parts for the different variants. So there are going to be other variants that are going to be made as all P-Bandai kits, I believe. So here on this dark red color runner, we only have a few parts here for this particular variant, it seems. Runners B1 and B2 here, having this middle section copied, is a bunch of parts here in brown for a lot of the armor. And taking a look on there, you can see all that really nice detail, so that is going to be looking pretty good. Runner C1 is here in this very dark gray, almost black. Runner C2 is cut out this section of the runner here, which is separated to be white. And a couple things to note about these feet parts here. Unfortunately, some hollow gaps in the feet. Don't really like to see that. And then I thought the Zimmerit would be molded around the sides of the feet, and that doesn't look like that's going to be the case, interestingly enough. So that might be something that if you want to have on there, you're just going to have to add on yourself, or we can take a look, see how the decals are going to look. And lastly, then we've got runners D1 and D2, which are going to be copied, again, that center section there. These are going to be in a dark navy color for mostly the inner frame and mechanical detail parts and things like that. That's it for all the runners. Let's go ahead and get it built up and check it out. Alright guys, so here is the kit all built up, and while building this kit I just kept thinking this is just really begging to be painted, so I think we're gonna have to do something about that. But first we're gonna go ahead and just take a look at the kit as it appears, of course, just straight out the box here. That's how I like to show the kits off to you guys, and obviously even just straight out of the box the kit's gonna be looking very good just with all those details on there. The color separation also pretty good on this. It's not like the most colorful design, but the part separation is quite nice and the articulation is pretty good as well. You'll see all that here in just a minute. But first, let's start off by taking a quick look here at its accessories, which we don't have a ton of, but there's a couple. And so first off, for our hand options, as you can see on the kit here, we've got these holding hands like that. And for the left side only, we've got this open hand or like a rifle support hand here. And for the right side only, we've got this trigger finger hand, which I have already attached onto the Zaku machine gun, which is a pretty nice design here. Functionally, it works exactly the same as a standard one. This handle here at the front will swing to the side for a two-handed grip. The camera, which is very small in this case, will move up and down a little bit there. I kind of like the fact that it's as small as it is. I mean, it's very realistic. I mean, thinking about it realistically, I mean, like a standard Zaku machine gun, Zaku 2 machine gun camera lens there on that, being as big as it normally is, would be like a meter wide. I mean, just thinking about like a meter camera lens like that would be like pretty large. Maybe not quite that big, but anyway, it'd be pretty big. This is a much more realistic looking size, I feel like, for that. But anyway, as with the rest of the kit, a lot of great details on here. Not really anything for seam lines too, which is nice. We'll talk some more about that in a little bit, but pretty cool design there for the Zaku machine gun. And then our other weapon, of course, is going to be the Heat Hawk, just one single molded piece here for this, and it does look pretty nice as well. A lot of great detail. Also a little bit larger than usual for a Zaku, at least for most other HG Zaku kits. You can see here with the Zaku, it's going to be pretty big, and obviously you'll see this in action in some posing here in just a moment. Now for storage, we have this connection piece here, which will attach onto the back skirt, and this can be used for either the machine gun or the Heat Hawk. You can just attach that onto there like that. And then in the case of the Heat Hawk, this is meant to just attach onto there like so. So it doesn't plug onto the side. Without any modification, there's no way to attach it onto the side, kind of like usual for most Zaku 2 kits. And similarly, the Zaku machine guns are going to attach on there the same way. I've just got the trigger finger hand on here for the moment, but I also just want to mention, so it's good that the ammo drum here on the top is like offset, because then when it's attached onto the back skirt there, it's not in the way, so it kind of makes sense. This part doesn't actually move at all. Some versions, like this part, will move. It'll fold down to the side to be able to attach it onto the back skirt. In this case, you don't need to. A couple other little accessories here. This little thing of missiles, I think it is, right? That attaches onto the side of the leg. Just a couple little missiles right there, and you can attach this onto either side. There is this hard point here on both the left and the right side. And lastly, just an action base adapter. So very similar to like what we saw with the HG, the Origin Zaku 2 kits, we have an action base adapter rather than a just regular 3mm hole up in there. That said, you could very easily just drill a hole right there into that brown part if you wanted to, just to be able to attach this onto an action base directly without using the adapter, but the adapter will clip up onto there. And that's kind of it for the accessories. As you'll notice, I didn't put any of these stickers on here except for one for the mono eye. And a lot of that is just due to the fact that, like I said, while I was putting the kit together, I was just thinking, okay, I've just got to paint this kit, and so there's not really any point in putting the stickers on. But to demonstrate to you guys, I do want to put a couple of these on here on the foot just to show you how those are going to look, particularly because they have this dirty Zimmerit kind of look there. Okay, and so anyway, just put a couple of the stickers here around on the one foot just so you guys can compare. And I mean, at a distance, I think at a glance, you know, if you're just looking at the kit like that, I think the stickers are gonna look fine. I mean, as far as these stickers go, you're gonna see that added bit of like kind of dirt, grime detail there around the feet. You have like the claws painted on there, which is pretty cool. Like I said, that'd be a very easy part to just paint on your own. Just take a little brush and go bloop, 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 bloop. Very simple. If you wanted to actually mold that Zimmerit detail into there, that's also a fairly simple technique, and I think we'll take a look at that here in just a moment as well. But the problem with these stickers is that they're going over, even though the sticker was broken up, this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 different stickers here. As you can see, what I've got just for the front half of one foot. So they broke up the stickers quite a bit, but it's still going to be going over some of this like detail here, and this type of sticker in particular doesn't really go well like over recessed detail. It's going to look kind of a bit odd if you're looking at it up close anyway. So it's just kind of up to you whether you want to use these or not. With most of the other ones just being like these marking decals and caution markings and things like that, they could look okay on this kit. Typically these kind of stickers don't really look good over dark colored plastic, which is like most everything that what we have here. So the stickers are definitely going to be visible, like the outline of the stickers anyway. The marking might look kind kind of cool to go ahead and throw that on the shield or something like that, but I think water slides is going to be the better way to go after painting the kit. So let's talk a little bit about the articulation here of this, as it is pretty nice. So the head will be able to go up to about there, and as you can see up underneath the head, again, just very similar to an HG the Origin Zaku 2, there's a little button under there that you can push side to side. It's kind of hard to do. I'd recommend either using the end of the heat hawk or using a toothpick. You can push that to the side to turn the mono eye, so that's pretty cool looking. And even the detail in there for like the track for the mono eye is pretty nice. So you have just a ton of fantastic detail here with this. In the torso here, this is one area that differs from the HD the Origin kit and the HD the Origin Zaku kits. These side parts of the torso kind of fold in when you fold the shoulders inwards. They don't do that in this case, so it's just like one big chunk here. But you do have pretty solid ab crunch here, forward and back. It's just basically kind of like a relatively simple joint there, but it's kind of helped by this skirt part here at the front. So this skirting armor, the sides are joined, and I kind of don't really like that fact about the design. This is like one big piece here, but that will lift up, and it's kind of limited, but then this whole section can actually fold forward a little bit. There's a joint at the bottom, so you can bring that a little bit forward. That will allow you to either raise the skirting armor up higher like that, or also just kind of be out of the way for a fuller ab crunch there, like so. So that works pretty well. But yeah, the shoulder joint will swing to the front like that, pretty standard. We can then bring the arms up and out to the side. It's going to be a bit limited just due to the design there, but as you can see, just kind of sort of 90 degrees perpendicular to the body almost. We have rotation there at the bicep and some pretty thick arms here. A double joint at the elbow gives you a full bend there. The wrists are just on a ball joint. The other side, even though the kit's asymmetrical, works the same way. The shield is attached via just a ball and socket joint there, and it can also, like, there's a little bit more movement that you can do with that. So that will work pretty nicely. Inside the inner part of the shield here, we have this handle which will fold out, and you can just use the hand to grab onto that part to reenact when it's just firing the guns here on the shield, like that. So that's pretty cool as well. For the rest of the skirt armor, I mentioned about the front skirt. The side skirts also will lift up. You do need to be careful. I found that if this brown part of the side skirt gets caught on the front skirt, it will pop off like that, and it just flew across the room. So when you're lifting up the side skirts, make sure the front skirt is out of the way, and then you can lift up the side skirt really far if you need to. I'm not really sure why you might need to, but if you wanted to have the leg like way out there like that, you can do that. I guess while we're here, we'll say that, yeah, the leg can go all the way out to the side if you need it to do so. The back skirt is just fixed. There's nothing that moves on the backpack either. Just while we're here, just take a quick peek at the backpack. Yep, there it is, pretty straightforward. And then going down to the legs, the hip joint here is one that will drop down if you need the leg to come farther up to the front. So you can drop the hip joint down, then bring this leg up. Again, it's pretty extreme and not sure you're really going to need to do it, but you can lift that all the way up there. You can bend the knee like the elbows on a double joint, which gives you a pretty full bend there. Not entirely, but pretty nice. And then the way that the cable or this piping part here on the side of the leg is actually made up of 3 parts. So one that goes just from the lower leg to the side of the knee, and then there's a part here that just connects like the side of the knee to the side of the thigh, and the side of the thigh to the upper part of the side of the thigh. Anyway, so it's kind of interesting design there for that part. And then just going down here to the ankle and foot area, this part here, which is like the top of the foot, is actually connected into the lower leg, so that will just be able to move in and out there like that. And then the ankle joint will allow for a pretty far bend downwards, and you just have to kind of adjust that part accordingly, but you're still going to see a kind of a hollow gap there, unfortunately, if you want to have the foot like way far down like that. And then up to the front, it's going to be just to about there, something like that, and then side to side, you have a pretty good range of movement there for being able to get a fairly wide stance out of this while keeping the feet flat on the ground. And then underneath the feet, as we saw in the unboxing portion of the video, unfortunately kind of lacking in terms of the fact that they just have partial detail and then partially just kind of empty space there. So kind of a shame that it's designed in that way. But I mentioned that aside from this fantastic detail, we have some really nice color separation and part separation. There's almost no seam lines on this, except for this seam line here in the forearm, which Bandai has a really strange fascination with. I do not understand why they can't figure out how, or either they can't or they refuse to figure out how to mold Zaku 2 forearms without a seam line down the middle. Even on some of the later HD the Origin kits, they sort of fixed it by just turning it into a panel line detail. But yeah, that's kind of the only seam line you're going to have. And with all the other detail you have on this kit, I think you're probably just going to be safe just turning this into a panel line detail as well, just using a scribing tool just along the edge of that. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, because you would probably have to modify the parts a little bit if you wanted to remove that seam line on there. So just turning it into a panel line is going to be easy enough. With how incredibly detailed this kit is, and just like the nature of the details and everything too, I figure this is a design that's going to be very forgiving for just like imperfections and things like that. So like seam lines, mold lines, even if you like miss a nub mark or something here and there, it's pretty much just going to blend in with the design, and it's not going to be immediately noticeable. There was even a couple times while building the kit where like removing the nubs on the parts, I had to like second guess and be like, wait, is that a nub or is that a detail? And there's a couple times when it was a nub and a couple times where it was a detail. So do make sure that you're being careful with that. There's a lot of like real small little details around on some of the edges of the parts and things like that. So just make sure you're not cutting anything off accidentally while you're in the process of, preparing the parts for building the kit. So as you can see here, really cool kit. Whether you're a fan of the series or not, I actually really quite liked the series. I finally did watch it, and it was quite interesting. I liked it. The designs, they're not my favorite designs by any means, but I do like the fact that they're just something different, something unique. I like the fact that Bandai's taken some chances with these kind of designs like this, and the reception of them does seem to be fairly good, even there in Japan too. With these designs taking a much more like realistic, sort of utilitarian sort of look to them, and I think it kind of works in some ways and doesn't really work as much in others. But at the very least, it's something different, something unique, and I can certainly appreciate that. So I think it's going to be one that, again, is going to look very nice if you at least do some panel lining and top coat on it. But if you can fully paint the kit, I think that's just going to be the way to go, and that's going to be the way that I'm going to go. But first, I do want to take a look at just adding some Zimmerit detail, I think, around on the feet. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so with those stickers removed, we're going to add a little bit of Zimmerit around here on the feet. And this is something that I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do it and a lot of different tools you can use. I'm going to show you one way that you can do it, and it should just serve as an example for you guys. Obviously for different type of kits, for different scale of kits, it's going to work a little bit differently. For this being in 144 scale, and just based on kind of how it looks in the stickers, you can see it needs to be pretty small. So essentially what you're going to do is just add some putty around here on the sides, and then you just need to give it that texture of having like all the little lines in it essentially. So I'm just going to be using some regular 2-part epoxy putty here, so I just need to cut a little bit of this, mix it up, and then we'll get to going. And we're not going to need that much, even though I only cut a little bit of each. It's still, there's always some left over, it seems like. Make sure you toss your leftovers into a Ziploc bag or something to keep that. And then just gotta mix this up a little bit here. And once we've got that pretty well mixed up, it should be like an even color. You shouldn't see the yellow and white separately anymore. You got a little bit of time to work with that, so you didn't need to like act super fast with it, but you don't want to wait too long either. The surface where we're going to apply it, we do want to make sure that's roughed up a little bit with at least a little bit of sanding on here so that the putty is able to get a good grip on the plastic. And again, we're not going to need a whole lot of putty as we're working with some kind of relatively smaller parts. And another important thing to remember too is that, anything that you put on here, you can take off. So you don't need to be too worried about like, oh, you're going to ruin your part or anything like that. So I want this to be pretty thin on there if possible. Again, just trying to keep in mind the scale of the kit that we're talking about here. And so once we've got that on there, basically about as thin as I can, what you need to do is then just make the texture. And a lot of times I've used this paint stirring stick before just because it has a flat end on it. I can just press it on there like that. For this, I wanted something a little bit smaller scale. So I actually just took a little piece of runner here and just cut the end to make it kind of a flat point there at the end. And then it's just a matter of putting your texture on here. Now you can get different tools for this. A lot of times people use like rollers, but if you don't have that, you can certainly use something like this. It's a little bit hard to do this on camera, trying to keep my lines straight. So just to demonstrate, show you guys how that's looking like that. But after the effect is completed, it's gonna look something like that, which I'm pretty happy with. Quite happy with the scale of that. I'm certainly no expert at this technique. I've done it, tried it like a couple of times, and this I feel like looks pretty good, at least for our purposes today. Now, I'm not going to recreate it exactly like it is, like on the original kit, where it goes like kind of all the way around. I wanna just put it on like maybe a couple spots, like the sides of the feet, something like this. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll carry on. So with that out of the way and our Zimmerit done on the sides of the feet there, that's looking pretty good. We're all set. And like I said before, with this being so detailed, just the nature of the kit means that there's really not that much. Well, of course you could go in and like do a bunch more sanding and cleanup and everything on this, but because you have all these little like raised surface details and stuff, I'm just gonna do very, very minimal prep work, very minimal sanding on this, just anywhere where there's a little bit of a mold line or a little bit of a nub that maybe needs to be sanded a little bit more. But you know, if I'm gonna be painting it, I wanna make something custom about it as well. So aside from that Zimmerit there on the feet, we're just gonna stick with the machine gun over here in this hand. But I've got this Project V Hobby large Heat Hawk 144 scale resin weapon here, which is not necessarily all that large. It's actually even smaller, I think, in comparison to the one that comes with this kit. But it's the large Heat Hawk style, like the decorative Heat Hawk style for like ace units. I think you see this with like the Dozel Zabi version and other different versions like that. So I'm gonna give it this Heat Hawk to hold in the hand there, just to make it kind of a little bit more unique. The problem is that this hand doesn't fit. So just looking at the hand there, and you can see it's basically just like too wide, the handle. So we can either sand this handle to make it narrower, or we can trim the inside of the hand here to make it fit. And I think that's what I'm gonna opt to do. I'm just gonna trim that a little bit, and it should fit in here. All right, so after just a little bit of cutting and filing that out just a little bit, while still not making the thumb look like anything unnatural, this is gonna just fit in there just right. I think I might need to trim a little bit more just to make this hand be able to close up completely there on the front. As you can see, it's just a little bit too snug there. In hand, it's a pretty awesome looking Heat Hawk there, and on the kit, it's gonna look pretty cool. I think I wanted something that would match the design, and the trouble is, because this is like so super detailed, using any sort of like normal HG weapon or something is gonna look very undetailed and very like low detail in comparison. This one, I feel like, just because of the nature of the Heat Hawk being this sort of like somewhat kind of decorative design, I can probably swing this one and make it work. Before we start assembling, a couple other things that I did want to mention here is like kind of ultimately how it's going to be looking, so you can get a sense of that for the pose anyway. But a couple things up here on the head. I've heard mixed opinions about whether like the safety flags up there are actually part of the design or not. I'm going to opt to just get rid of those, so I'm going to be cutting those off on the head. And then of course we have the seam line in the forearm to discuss. And if we look at these parts really closely, you can see on the one side there is that kind of little step detail there, like what we normally see on parts that go together to make a panel line detail, but that just ends up getting covered up. So a couple of things that you could do. One option I think might be from this like square box kind of detail right there to like the end of the cuff, this length of the part, just very, very slightly, like less than 1 millimeter, just cut that back. So just basically file that down, just basically to create a little bit of a gap that would allow you to see this step down in there, basically making a tiny little cutout along this line. What I'm gonna opt to do though is just using this panel line edge, oh, this is the wrong tool, is use this panel line edge scriber. I've used this before. You guys have seen this. On one side it has a 0.3, on the other side it has a 0.6 millimeter edge on that. And on here, the side that does, and on here, the side that doesn't have the step down, I'm gonna put a 3 millimeter, 0.3 millimeter, I should say, edge on that. I gotta take this off of here first though. This tool works pretty simply. You basically just hold this on the edge and just kind of pull this along there, and it will carefully make your edge of your part into a panel line. Not gonna be able to see it too well at the moment, but that will work for our panel line separation for that part right there. And honestly, looking at this like that, I kind of like the look of how this looks with like just a frame arm. I mean, like I would have to cut some of these pegs off here and try to make it look a little bit more like a realistic frame rather than like a model kit frame, but it does kind of look kind of cool. there with just like a kind of mangled frame arm there, sort of as it were, like a damaged arm. Something that could be an idea for a future project, but for now, like I said, just gotta work on taking everything apart and getting it ready for paint, and then we'll continue on. And as I'm doing that, I just wanted to remind you guys of how useful a part separator tool is, and here you can see here's mine, which is quite well used. Super useful tool for disassembling kits, especially if you're gonna be painting, or if you're assembling the kit and you maybe accidentally assemble something wrong, you put parts together, you forgot there's a poly cap in there. Part separator, very useful tool. Highly recommend you guys pick one up if you don't have one. But anyway, that's going to be it for this part of the video. If you guys want to check out this kit and some of the tools and supplies that I've been using here in today's video, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. Like I said, I'm wanting this to be a pretty quick project, so I'm going to come back with part 2, painting this kit and then showing off the finished product for you guys very soon. Stay tuned for that. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at the Solari Zaku here. Very cool kit. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And as always, guys, thanks so much for all of your support. We'll see you in the next video.